G'day and welcome to Inside Rugby. My name is Mark. I'm a Kiwi rugby fan living here in beautiful Cancun in Mexico. Well, we've had a week off in the Six Nations competition and we're getting ready to go into another weekend of competition next weekend. So I thought it was an opportunity now to make a couple of videos about how each of the teams have gone so far in this year's competition. In today's video, I'm going to be looking at the bottom three teams as they're ranked at the moment. And we're talking about Italy, Wales and France. And in tomorrow's video, I'm going to be talking about England, Scotland and Ireland and looking at how they're progressing so far in this year's tournament. So let's start off with Italy, and Italy are placed last so far in this year's competition. And I guess the big thing for Italy is their new coach, Gonzalo Quesada, who took over from Kieran Crowley after the Rugby World Cup. And many thought, myself included, that we were going to see a new era in Italian rugby. And I think it's still too early to probably assume what Gonzalo Quesada is going to be able to get out of this Italian team. Now, all the teams have played twice so far, and Italy played their first game against England. And I thought they looked pretty good in that game. They had moments where they were really putting the pressure on England. They got some quality ball and they showed how they could use that on attack. And of course, late in that second half, they got a try that brought their score back to a lot of respectability in that particular game. Now, Italy scored 24 points against England's 27 in that first match, and it looked like Italy had the opportunities to get through that English defence. Of course, at that stage, we didn't know whether that England defence was good or bad compared to the rest of the teams, but Italy did break through a couple of times. And I thought the Italian forwards played good in patches throughout that game. But one of the things that's been lacking with Italian teams over the years is their ability to be able to play for 80 minutes. And they can have some great patches of 10, 15 or 20 minutes, but then they let themselves down by letting the opposition get in and score some points and go away and win the game. And I think that's one of the things that Quesada is going to want to focus on with this Italian team, is to try and get more consistency in their play for 80 minutes. I don't know about you, but since Negri for Italy had that bad concussion experience, it doesn't seem to be the same player. And unfortunately for Italy, when he's going very well, then the rest of the team seems to be going very well indeed. And he just hasn't been firing as much as he used to. I think Italy have some problems in some other areas. So you can't blame it on one man, of course, and if you look at different areas of Italy's play, they're letting themselves down on a number of occasions. And I've made it no secret on this channel that I think Quesada needs to have a look at the number 10 position for Italy. And the reason is because I think Gallegos is not the right guy for the number 10 shirt for Italy. His game management lets Italy down on a number of occasions where he makes the wrong decisions, and he's just simply not fast enough in there at number 10. He's been caught a number of times by the opposing defense. Also, his technical skills around actually kicking in general play are very poor, and he's made some very bad decisions in that area for Italy so far in this competition that have not only cost them points, they've cost them momentum in games. And we all know how important that is. Once a team gets some momentum going, then it's not very good when they turn that ball over and it's given away again. And Gallegos has been responsible for that for a couple of times for Italy. So I think Quesada needs to have a look at number 10. I think also he's still playing around with his back line. I'd like to see maybe Tommaso Allen be given an opportunity at number 10 and see how he goes there. He could be the solution for Italy. But I think across the board, they really need to put more passion in their game over 80 minutes, and that's really what's letting Italy down. They're not going to win any games in the Six Nations competition by playing really, really well for 15 or 20 minutes. They've got to be able to withhandle a strong defense for a long period of time to keep these opposition teams from scoring points against them, and they've got to be able to get in there and score points. Now, we saw them do that against England, but we saw the reverse against Ireland, didn't we, where they leaked a lot of points. In fact, they didn't score any points in that game against Ireland, and I think Quesada and the team would have been very, very disappointed by that. So an encouraging sign, I think, for Italy against England, although England were just getting themselves into this tournament with a new look team as well. And then when it came time to come up against the Irish at home in Dublin, it was a bit of a mauling on behalf of Italy there, going down 36 points to nil in that second game. So I think as we move forward in the Six Nations Quisada, no doubt about it, it's going to be looking for improvement for Italy. They're coming up against France this weekend. I'll be doing a full preview of that game once the teams are announced, and give you my thoughts on whether I think Italy are going to have any chance against France this coming weekend. Okay, so next on my list is Wales, and of course, like every other team, they've played 2 games as well, and boy, Wales have probably been involved in the 2 cliffhanger games so far in the competition. Who's going to forget that game against Scotland at Cardiff at the Principality Stadium? It was a fantastic game. That 25 minutes in the second half when Wales came storming back, and there was a good opportunity there for them to win that game, but Scotland held on in the end by playing a smart last 5 or 6 minutes of that game, keeping control of the ball, Finn Russell coming into the play again, and their defence holding Wales out. And I think by the time we actually got to that point of the game, I think Wales had basically run out a bit of gas, because they really put everything into that 25 or 30 minutes, didn't they, in that second half. So as we know, it's a young Wales team coming out this year, and Warren Gatland's got a lot of work to do to try and gel this team into something good. I was very impressed with that performance against Scotland in that period in the second half. But a little bit like I've just been talking about Italy, Wales need to be able to go for the 80 minutes. And that's going to show in all of their games. So a number of positions, Elias, a lot of you have been talked about. Elias is not the right guy for this team. Came on, made a couple of mistakes, and probably not going so well in the competition so far. We saw Costello, of course, go off with that concussion, and Ian Lloyd came in and covered for him in the other game. Look, despite the loss against Scotland, I think there was enough to be excited about with that Welsh team in that 25 to 30 minute phase in the second half. And boy, and if they're able to put that together for 80 minutes, they're going to be able to take on anybody in this competition, that's for sure. And it was a very exciting thing for Welsh rugby to see them playing like that. So I think Wales have the talent. I think Gatland just needs a little bit more time to bring these guys together, and for them to be able to really find some combinations as they go forward. Lloyd, unfortunately, in that second game didn't play as well as he did in the first game, I thought. But then again, he's a young guy. He's got to be given the opportunity to get this kind of experience in the Six Nations competition. And I think he'll grow into it over a bit of time. Does Wales have the patience to stick with him? Well, we'll have to wait and see. Is this Welsh side missing Lewis Rees-Zammit? Yes, they are. I think he's a brilliant player, brilliant try scorer, of course, scored a lot of points for Wales, and just taking somebody out of the squad with his talent is surely going to have an impact on the game. But they can't dwell on that for too long. I don't believe they're dwelling on it at all, but they've got to be able to move on. But I think he was a big contributor to this Welsh team. I've liked Rio Dyer's performances so far in the games for Wales. I think he's been very, very good. It's good to have George North back in as well, bringing that a lot of experience. Of course, over 100 caps for George North for Wales. And I think as the tournament goes on, they're going to be very, very pleased they've got him back into. So 2 close matches so far for Wales. 27-26 loss to Scotland, and then a 16-14 loss to England at Twickenham. And after England came back into that game, Wales were leading at half-time, don't forget. So I think the potential's there for Wales, and I think Warren Gatland's using the Six Nations tournament as an opportunity to build teams. And, you know, as fans and as spectators of these teams, we get a little bit frustrated if they're not winning week in, week out, no matter what nation we support. But there's got to be that development stage, and I think Wales are going through that right now in the Six Nations. By the time we get to Australia in July and they take on the Wallabies under Joe Schmidt for the first time, that's going to be a really interesting series down under. I'm looking forward to that. And by the time Wales get there, you'd want to think that Gatland's got this team pumping along a little bit, and they're going to take it to Australia and give them a good fight. So I think that's going to be the next step that's going to be really interesting to watch in the development of this young Welsh side, is when they get to Australia, see how they've gone through the Six Nations tournament. Hopefully each game they're building and they're getting better and better. I think they slipped back a little bit against England, but we'll have to wait and see what they do next weekend. Now, Wales are going to be in a tough situation this weekend coming up, because they're going to be travelling to Dublin, taking on Ireland. And of course, any team that comes up against Ireland at the moment are going to have their work cut out for them. So after those 2 close games, Wales are going to have to want to lift themselves again, go hard in Dublin and see how long they can hold it with Ireland. I don't think they're going to have a successful trip to Dublin. But I think if that Welsh team can show us that rugby that they played in that 25-minute period of the second half against Scotland, then they're going to have a better chance of hanging in there with Ireland for a little bit longer. I think Gatland's selections for this weekend are going to be interesting. Let's see what they are. Once the teams are announced, I'm going to do a preview video of that game between Ireland and Wales this coming weekend. So far in the tournament, I think Gatland would have been a little bit disappointed that he didn't win one of those two games. I think maybe the Scottish game they could have got up to in the end, and let's face it, they could have won that England game as well. So even though they're in this rebuilding stage, they've had two close games so far. Going to be really interesting to see what happens in Dublin on Saturday, that's for sure. Looking at some players for Wales, Stafford Jenkins I think has done a good job so far. I think the Welsh front row is having a little bit of a hard time. Going to be very interesting to see how they're going to go this weekend against Ireland. That's going to be a tough ask for them. Thomas Williams, is he the guy for halfback? I think he played well, particularly when he came on in that game against Scotland. He showed some pace and some flair and some energy. Didn't quite replicate that against England too much, but I think he might be the right man to really get that Welsh back line away. Whether they're going to go with Costello or Ian Lloyd's going to be an interesting decision. That's going to be one of the ones that I think we need to see Warren Gatland decide on how he's going to go forward. On the wings, I think we've got Adams and Dyer playing pretty well at the moment. And at fullback, I've been very impressed by Cameron Winnett. I think he's a steady, very good, solid player at fullback, and I think he's going to grow into a more dynamic player as the years go on. So I'm going to be interesting to watch his evolution as a fullback and a good player in that Welsh backline. So across the board, I think Wales have the players there. Their youth and inexperience is obviously costing them a little bit at the moment, but let's see what they can do against Ireland in the weekend. Now the third team I wanted to look at in this video is France, and of course after their disappointment of being knocked out of the Rugby World Cup in 2023, it was always going to be very interesting to see how France were going to bounce back this year in the Six Nations competition. And before the competition started, of course, we had the news that Antoine Dupont was heading off to play for their Sevens team, heading into the Paris Olympic Games and wanting to follow his dream in that particular area. So I think all the media presence and everybody was talking about the impact that Dupont's absence would have on this French team, and we probably saw it straight away, didn't we, in that first game against Ireland. But we've got to be careful, I think, in terms of saying that it's a one-man team, this French team. I think this French team is full of talent. I just don't think they've been playing very well, and maybe that comes down to some of the coaching strategies and some of the things that they're doing off the field. Now don't forget that Dupont has been around this team for such a long time. His general leadership on and off the field has been something that's been a catalyst of energy and motivation for this French team, and I think they're just finding their feet again and having to find some new leadership styles within the team, and that's been difficult for France. I always thought that game against Ireland was going to be pivotal to their Six Nations performance, because if they started off that particular match with a good win, then they were going to get some momentum going into this tournament. But Ireland came to Marseille in that first game with a totally different mindset, and they played extremely well to beat France in that opening game. I never thought it was going to be 38 points to 17 in favour of Ireland. Not many people did, but Ireland deserved that win absolutely. I think that really put France back on the back foot once again, because they didn't expect probably to lose that game, and secondly to lose it in the style that they did. They were well and truly beaten in Marseille. So when they turned around and they had their second game, I think France were looking for that quick fight back against Scotland, but going to Murrayfield, of course, is always a very difficult ask. Now again, it happened to France in that second game against Scotland at Murrayfield. Scotland got off to a good start. They got a good lead as far as points on the board, and they started creating momentum in the game. And unfortunately for France, they lost their captain and leader, number 8 in that game, Gregory Aldrit. He got one of those terrible injuries where he got spiked in the leg, very similar to what Tyrell Lomax happened to him in the Rugby World Cup. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks. He's not going to be playing again this weekend, and I think that's going to damage France even further as they go into this weekend's game against Italy. But I'll talk about more about that in the preview for this weekend's match when the teams are announced. So I think in that second game, France were looking to come back and actually have an opportunity of beating Scotland at Murrayfield. And when they got back into the game in the second half, you could feel the momentum was changing. And when Biarri scored that fantastic try where he chipped over the top of the defence, regathered the ball and bet the Scottish defence to the line, France were good for that win, I thought. But I think also, and I spoke about this to the upsetment of a lot of people watching my videos, that I thought Scotland should have had that game sealed and delivered before that point in the game. But France used a bit of their brilliance, came back into the game and really showed us what they can do. But once again, we've got a French team that play brilliantly for 10 or 15 minutes, and they're not playing that way across 80 minutes. Again, I think France have the players in this team to make something of the Six Nations competition. The likes of Antonio have been playing really well. I think Malvac is a fantastic hooker and really good. Cyril Bay in the propping position is really good. I think they've got a lot of great forwards. The likes of Cameron Woki, I think, is absolutely brilliant. Charles Olivon, Gregory Aldred, they're all really good players, and it just doesn't seem like they're bringing it together with the same amount of momentum at the moment. Where they start to have a few problems, and what we haven't seen as far as their great play goes so far in the tournament, is around their halfback and their number 10 situation. So I think Luku is struggling a little bit, and Matthew Jalabert hasn't been at his brilliant best so far in this tournament. So when you're 9 and 10 and not really igniting the game for your team and going forward, I think that's where we're starting to see a few problems with this French team. Also, Jonathan Danty hasn't been spectacular at number 12, so therefore the outside backs haven't been as good as what we know that they can be. Gael Fekau has played pretty well. He scored a try, of course, in that game against Scotland, and he's made us some interesting breaks, but he needs to be playing at his best every single game. I spoke in my review of that game between France and Scotland that I'd like to see Biarri be starting for this French lineup, and I'm not sure why Fabien Gaultier is not sticking to this plan. I think he's a game changer, he's a game winner. We've seen that in the game against Scotland, and he just brings that absolute spectacular opportunity for France to get breaks in games, and I think they need to have him there. I think he's a really good counterweight for Damien Penaud on the other wing, and I like those two wingers together for this French team. I think Thomas Ramos has been doing pretty well at fullback. He's very Mr. Consistent when it comes to kicking, conversions and also penalties, and I don't think he's been bad so far in the Six Nations. So France have it all there. There's a reason why it's not coming together, and I'd really like to understand what that is. A number of the French supporters are asking for the head already of Fabien Gaultier, saying that there's got to be a change there in the coaching system. I'm not sure whether that's the problem. Maybe it is, but we have to wait and see how they perform over the next number of games. Now, they're going to be playing Italy this weekend, and it's going to be really interesting to see whether we see that French fast-flowing game against Italy and whether they're able to bring it together. Don't forget, Gregory Aldred's going to be missing from the French lineup, so that means the number 8 is gone, and they're also looking for a new leader. It's probably going to be Charles Olivon in that position, I would say. We'll have to wait and see until the teams are announced. Now, I'll be making a full preview of that game between Italy and France coming up this weekend once both teams have been announced. So to summarise France's performance so far in the Six Nations in one word: disappointing. I think we'll be all looking for them to play better this coming weekend and for the remainder of the tournament. And if they don't, then we can expect to see some changes, I think, from this French outfit as they head into the rest of the year. So there we go. That's my recap on the Six Nations competition so far after round 2 of the competition. I'm going to be back again tomorrow with another video looking specifically at Scotland, England and Ireland, and we'll have a look at how they've played so far and what they've got coming ahead as well next weekend. So thanks very much for sticking around here on my channel. If you like my content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you all again tomorrow in the next video. Until then, stay safe, stay well. Time to say adios from beautiful Mexico. Bye for now.